Solomon seal, or Polygonatum biflorum, is a wonderful plant that is native to the United States that is frequently found growing in rich, moist forests and is great for easing the pain and inflammation of arthritis when it's used properly. There are many species of Solomon seals throughout the world, but in this video we are just focusing on the one found in the eastern United States. This plant is easy to identify with its very long stalk that can grow to varying heights, but is usually around 3 to 4 feet. Along the stem we will notice oval to egg-shaped leaves with smooth margins, and the leaves will grow in an alternating pattern along the stem. The flowering period is usually rather short and is from the middle of May to the middle of June in my area of central Indiana. The flowers are a yellow-green in color and will resemble a barrel in shape and are found along the underside of the stem. The underground portion or root of the plant is what is used for arthritic pain, usually in teas or tinctures. The root is very long and can vary in size depending upon how long the plant has been growing. Solomon seal gets its name from the circular seals along the root, and the number of these seals are an indicator of how many years the plant has been growing by producing one seal per year. Solomon seal is slow growing and would be easy to overharvest, so it's best to use it from places that are cultivating it instead of foraging it from the wild. However, it does produce a very delicious and mild-flavored tea that is great at easing the pain of arthritis and has been used for this purpose for centuries, so it does undoubtedly deserve a spot on this list. Plantain is a plant commonly found in yards that is great at easing pain and inflammation. Now, there are usually two kinds of plantain you're going to find in your yard, and they're both very easy to identify. One is the Narrowleaf Plantain, or Plantago lanceolata. Narrowleaf plantain will have long, narrow leaves growing in a basal rosette with smooth margins and very prominent veins running the length of the leaf. When looked at closely, we can see very fine hairs on these leaves as well. Now, the other plantain you might find in your yard is Broadleaf Plantain, or Plantago major. Broadleaf plantain, like its name implies, has very broad egg-shaped leaves with smooth margins, and like the narrowleaf plantain, it also has very prominent veins running the length of the leaves. However, upon close inspection, these leaves are going to be smooth instead of hairy. The broadleaf plantain grows in a basal rosette as well, so there are some similarities in the growth forms of both species. There are several good things about plantain, and one is that they are both usable for treating pain. In fact, I will frequently use both of these species together for a more potent mixture. They both contain pain-relieving properties and anti-inflammatories, but they're also antibacterial, so they can even get rid of or prevent infections and cuts and bug bites. The feeling of plantain on your skin is really nice and cooling, and the effects can be felt almost instantly. To use for pain, I will frequently make a poultice out of the fresh leaves and apply them directly to the affected area. However, sometimes I do use them in balms and salves for long-term storage. However, another good thing about plantain is that they can both be used as a wash or even added to bath water for soaking sore muscles after a long, hard day. Rest assured that no matter how you use plantain, you're going to get some really good pain relief from this very common weed. Bee balm, or Monarda fistulosa, is frequently grown in pollinator gardens in most of the United States. In some areas, you will find it growing along roadsides, edges of woodlines, and trails in clearings with other beneficial plants like coneflower and mountain mint. Bee balm is easy to identify because, like the majority of mints, it has a square stem and a very unique minty smell when the leaves are crushed. The plant can grow to about 4 feet in height and will have long tubular flowers growing in a very tightly packed cluster. The flower color can vary from red to purple and even indigo depending upon variety, but usually I find them to be a very light purple in color. The leaves will grow in an opposite pattern along the stem, and the leaves are short and lance-shaped with very strongly serrated margins. Now, being a mint species, this plant is commonly used for easing inflammation due to its cooling sensation, and while the whole above-ground portion of the plant can be used, I usually just stick to the leaves and leave the flowers for the bees and the butterflies. This plant is really good at easing the pain of headaches, whether they are caused by tension or by sinus buildup. Now, when used topically on sore muscles, they will often ease up and start to relax in a matter of minutes, and if used topically on the forehead, it will relieve most headaches rather quickly. Another way to use this plant is in tincture form by taking about 30 drops under the tongue. However, this can cause some people to sweat, so make sure you keep that in mind. Prickly lettuce, or Lactuca cereola, like all wild lettuce species, are world-renowned by herbalists for their pain-relieving properties. Often considered similar to opiates in the relief that they provide, there are no opiates inside of them, so there's no lagging side effects or worries about drugging yourself. Thankfully, prickly lettuce is easy to identify even though its leaves look similar to dandelion to the untrained eye. Prickly lettuce will have leaves that are about 3 to 6 inches in length with many lobes and serrations along the margins. The underside of the leaves will have prickly spines that the plant gets its name from, and the leaves will grow in an alternating pattern along the stem. The stem is round and stiff and will also have these little spines, so some caution is needed when harvesting this plant. Growing to a height of up to 5 or 6 feet usually, the plant will have small yellow, ray-like flowers with many petals. After flowering, they will produce a seed connected by a fluffy cotton-like substance that allows it to be spread by the wind. The plant can be used topically in a poultice, applied to fresh cuts or bruises, or even made into a tea. However, it is rather bitter, so I don't personally prefer this method unless it's absolutely required. Prickly lettuce is considered to be a weed by most people, and it will grow almost anywhere. I've seen this plant growing out of the cracks on sidewalks and in places in lawns where not much else will grow. I've even seen it in rich fields and clearings, so it's incredibly easy to find, and most people will be happy to let you take as much as you want. Just be sure to ask permission before you go and harvest it. And again, I want to reiterate, like its name implies, it does have prickly spines running along the plant, so be sure to be careful when harvesting it so you don't stab yourself, because they can be rather sharp. Yarrow, or Achilles millefolium, is number 1 on this list because it is so effective at relieving pain and inflammation. Yarrow is incredibly easy to identify, however, it can look slightly similar to the wild carrot or poison hemlock to the untrained eye, so it's incredibly important to know how to separate between those plants before using it for medicine. Yarrow will usually grow to a height of about 2 to 3 feet and will start off with a set of basal leaves that usually persist throughout the year, making it a good choice to forage. The leaves are somewhat variable in length, ranging anywhere from 5 to 9 inches, and as we go up the stem of the mature plant, they will become much shorter than that. Being very finely dissected and almost fern-like or feather-like in appearance, the leaves will grow in an alternating pattern along the stem. The flowering period of yarrow is usually from late April to late July in my area of central Indiana, and the flowers grow in an umbel, which will resemble an upside-down umbrella. The flowers are going to be very numerous on each cluster and white with 3 to 5 petals. Like the plantains that we discussed earlier, yarrow also contains antibacterial properties, so it's a good choice for cuts and wounds to be used topically. Often used fresh as a poultice or dried in balms and salves, it can also be used in tinctures, and tinctures are my preferred method of delivery for this amazing plant. Commonly seen growing along roadways, and especially in clearings or fields, some people will even grow it in their garden because it's not only really pretty, but it's really good for pollinators. Yarrow is so good at relieving pain, it was once said to be used by Achilles on his troops for sword wounds, and Native Americans commonly use this plant on wounds after a battle. I have used this plant to great success on many cuts and wounds that would have required stitches, and it not only relieves the pain, but it helps the wounds to heal incredibly fast and with minimal scarring. One of my friends has used yarrow to help ease the pain of a couple of teeth that needed to be pulled by just simply packing some of the leaves in his gums. Another one of my friends had used it for the same reason, but he used it in tincture form by just dropping the tincture on the tooth itself. When yarrow is used in conjunction with plantain, you are sure to have an amazing method of relieving pain very quickly and without any additional discomfort, and that's why yarrow is number 1 on this list.